My observation is when we've done the live stuff, you have a lot to say, but you'll pare it down. Or you'll just say, I'm just going to leave it there. You don't have to do that. You get to just say everything you need to say.
Okay, you'll need to prod that a little bit. I'm going to tell you a huge thing I've learned, and it's one of those things that probably fosters a lot of what you're saying right now, is I've learned when I'm speaking, there is no learning going on. There's
For
nothing
you.
happening for me. I've
Yeah.
learned that. And I can speak and I can help others and I can encourage others, and that's great. But at any
Yes.
point that I'm speaking, the only context and the only starting point is what's inside me. And so there's no learning going on at all when anything's coming out of my mouth. And so I work very hard on making my point, and then at that point stopping, because whatever I put out there, whether it was a grenade or it was a little flame or a little spark or whatever it was, if I can just stop, then whatever that did will light and it will ignite, and then those things will come out, and then I'll be able to learn from that.
Oh, what's going on, L&M family? Welcome back. Thank you for continuing to support us in our efforts to enhance the image of careers in the trades. You just heard a real quick snippet of the uncontainable Miss Jennifer Lacy. She's going to put on a masterclass of culture transformation and self-discovery. I did my very best to keep my damn mouth shut because I know you have been faced with the challenge of leading change, and you're about to get some knowledge, baby, because Jennifer's bringing it. So you best be ready to take some notes. And on the L&M Backstage Pass, which is fans-only content, she drops straight gold, man. You got to check it out. Hit us up on patreon.com/learnings and missteps, spelled correctly this time. I heard you loud and clear. I was being stubborn about the spelling. It is changed. Soak up all of them L&M Backstage Pass episodes, and it's time to get you some, baby. Here we are with Miss Jennifer Lacy. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little bit nervous, but that's okay.
You're nervous. So tell us, why are you nervous?
I'm nervous because I am probably, those that know me, one of the most comfortable, uncomfortable people. Like, I can be in a room, I can have no idea what we're going to talk about. I can be at a project. I can be in a room with executives. It doesn't matter. Even though it's a kind of an uncomfortable situation, I'm comfortable. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the unknown. And for whatever reason, just because this is different for me, or this is a different setting, or I don't know what we're going to talk about, and it's about me, it's got me completely upside down right now.
Yes. I'm going to mark that on the calendar here. Got Jennifer off center. I get points for that. So when I first reached out about you being on the show, what was the first thought that came to mind?
Why me? And what value could I add to the reach that you have? And what, it's just me. And that's, me a little bit. So, that's kind of where I go. But I listen to the podcast and I listen to the people that you interview. And a lot of them are field focused. A lot of them are practitioners. A lot of them are in the field and they're doing some amazing things. And sometimes I think for me, helping support that and helping being a part of that and helping elevate others, it's not in line with that. And so I think for me, it was, okay, what value could I add?
That's where you always come from, is how are you going to add value? So that's part of the reason why. And the other reason is, the purpose of the show is to enhance the image of careers in the trades or in our industry. And I'm a tradesman. And so it's easy for me to say, I'm just going to talk to craft workers, people that are installing the stuff. However, there are a ton of careers in our industry that people just don't know about. I mean, I interviewed Diana Huang. She's a talent acquisitionist. That's fancy, right? Because of that, for that exact reason, because she's an amazing human being. And also to help our listeners out there and maybe more pointed, the parents and the educators to become aware of the diversity of the trades in our industry. So that's another reason why, Jennifer. And maybe not lastly, but I'll stop with, I mean, we've talked about it earlier. Like, you didn't come up in construction, and you are having enormous impact on so many projects across the country. And there's people out there that have the same, or maybe not the same, probably absolutely not the same, but similar capability, and maybe not happy in their job, not fulfilled in their job. And we need those amazing people in our industry to be able to change the things for the people, for everybody, for the clients, for the installers, for the management. So that's why I'm thinking, if we, get Jennifer's voice out there, because you inspire me. And I know that there's a whole bunch of people out there that if they just caught that smile and heard the energy in your voice, they would know, like, oh, wow, there's something else, and maybe take a leap of faith and try something different. So that's why you, Jennifer. Is that fair?
Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you for listening to the show. And I say that kind of selfishly. So whoever's listening right now for the first time, listen to the rest of the episode.
Yes, absolutely.
It's been amazing. I mean, people share so much, and we have a really, really great time. And no, not you. Jake Harrell, I interviewed. He's the most recent episode, and he's a lean practitioner. He's not in the construction space, but he talks about improvement, and he talks about the responsibility of leadership in any change movement, which we need some of that over here.
We do a lot of industries, and I think just as I have conversations, I was talking to Adam Hoots recently. He says, I see everywhere he looks, he sees flow. He looks at flow, and I'm like, everything I see waste. And it's like I'm having a conversation with my brother or my friend, and their companies and what they're talking about, and it's like waste. I just see waste every time I'm looking at something, and even as we're in the house cleaning or doing something, it's like waste.
Got to kill it, get rid of it, get it out of the system. The next few interviews are going to be with lean practitioners, and again, some of the reasoning behind that is my experience coming up through the trades. I never would have. Never, ever would I have said I want to be a lean person when I grow up, or if I grow up. But that's what I do. Like you said, I caught the bug, can't help but see it everywhere. And most of the folks from the construction changemaker group are on the lineup to be interviewed here in the near future, because I want to, again, highlight folks. But maybe if you zoom out and look at the lineup and see what all their messages are, would give some hope, because our industry's it's rough. It can be very rough on people, and we need people to know that there are some dedicated maniacs out there working to make it a more hospitable place.
Right.
So that's the rundown on the soon to come lineup. We got some super cool people. But back to Miss Jennifer Lacy. Jennifer, what would you like the L&M family to know about you?
I think a couple of things, and some of them weren't there before you just started talking a while ago, and then my brain just went to, because again, it comes back to, why am I here? I think and how are we changing the perception of the construction industry? I come in completely with no construction background. Now I say that 18 years ago, so it's like I say no construction background, and it's like, oh, we're just talking to a newbie. My journey's been a little bit of a roller coaster, how I've navigated throughout construction, but I'd be remiss to not give a little bit of credit to the company that I work for, just because, Robbins and Morton 18 years ago opened an office, and they took a chance on someone that had zero experience, but there were some qualities, obviously, that they felt could help benefit them. And then through that, gave me kind of the autonomy to be able to find my way through marketing and through BD and through just conversations. And then also a little over 6 years ago, we started as a company looking at lean and looking at what that looked like, started capturing some of our successes on some IPD projects. And I think I sat through one onboarding. And it was kind of, hey, we're looking to change kind of the mindset and looking at what it looks like for Robbins and Morton specifically. We do healthcare construction, and I sat through one onboarding, and I listened for a half day to what lean was and how Robbins and Morton wanted to approach that. And I couldn't even sit in my seat. Like, They were talking about collaboration and leadership development and a learning culture and continuous improvement. And again, these were the first time these words have been introduced to me, even though I was working in a company that I was happy. I'm happy and I'm enjoying what I do. And it just lit a fire inside of me to where I could not even contain it. And I'm asking questions and what is this? And I then at that point, it just, how can I learn? And for me, it wasn't so much I got to go read and I got to go do all these things. It was I have an entire sandbox, entire playground of people that are out there doing amazing things and have had successes and have had failures and what worked and what didn't. And I think for me, it was, okay, how can I tap into all that? And I've got some really good friends, some of my best friends that I think for a while it took like, okay, Jennifer, enough. Like I was asking questions after questions after questions because I wanted to know and understand. And part of it was construction, obviously, because you want to understand what you're promoting and what you're talking about. But the other part was, how does that equate to lean and what does that look like? And so for someone who has been in the industry but wasn't out there building something or wasn't on the project site all the time, it was like getting that information and then how does that equate to the other job and how does that make that different? And I think the more that I saw it and the more that I saw the impact it was having, for me, it came down to there's a lot of tools and there's a lot of processes and strategy when it comes to lean. But what hit home for me and what still does today, and you know that, is that foundation of that respect for the people. I think when it comes down to, for construction, for us being an industry that is known for sometimes taking advantage or focusing on a win-lose, making that environment not a win-win for everyone. And for what lean, the foundation of lean, focusing on that respect for people, it gave me something to kind of anchor to. And knowing, okay, if I'm going to do this and I feel like I need to, then how can I make that be what's elevated? That's what I think got me excited and gave me some foundation to be able to jump off of.
So for the new L&M listener that also heard lean for the very first time, how would you describe it to them?
For me, it's the way I describe it, it's two things. It's number one is it is looking at eliminating waste. How are we eliminating the waste in our industry? How are we adding value? So is there value being added? Is it an action or is it a process that is adding value to the end customer? And then how are we improving efficiency? How are we looking at the way we've done things and looking at a better way to do it? So that's the way I try to sum it up when it comes to lean. Obviously, people is the theme throughout all of that and how they impact that. The other one is the balance of, and this is what I've run into when it comes to lean, or even for us, it's building forward. Building forward is our kind of lean approach, but it focuses on that culture of caring for the people. That's the foundation. And then the other things are built upon that. So it's a culture of caring, but building forward. And then it's balancing that with lean tools. And I think for me, helping communicate to across the board that when you're looking at it, and it's a visual that I put in every alignment, onboarding, whatever, it's a very simple visual. It's a scale. And when you're looking at the scale, there's compliance and there's continuous improvement. And what we've struggled to communicate to those that have been so successful in this industry, those that have experience and those that have maybe come up, in a different mindset, is that it's not one or the other. It's a scale. So there's going to be times that it's going to tilt towards compliance because you cannot improve construction if you cannot build and you don't understand it. So those policies and procedures and those things that are in place to make sure that we're building, just a basic foundation of being able to build, there's going to be times where that has to be the focus. And it's not about how do we make it better if we can't have that basic foundation. Now, there's also times it's going to tilt the other way. And there's opportunities to go, hey, we've got this baseline, but how do we make it better? And that's where it tilts towards continuous improvement, where we can elevate and highlight ideas, innovations, things like that. But to me, it's a scale, and we have to embrace that, and we have to make sure that we're communicating that there's times that it's going to tilt one way because that has to be what's focused, and then the other, tilting the other way because that needs to be the focus.
That is the far better way of saying you must have standards. Have you heard
Yes.
that?
Yes, I know Deming said you cannot manage what you don't measure. And that's a quote that he says, but I throw that out the window. I do respect everything he's put in place, but in my mind, you cannot improve what you don't measure. Because managing is, we know that word, manage, lead, things like that. Sometimes it gets a little weird on what does that look like, but you cannot improve what you don't measure. And how do you measure with no baseline?
You've been working on defining a baseline lately, haven't you?
A little bit.
A little bit, a lot of it, I think. So you mentioned your path. You've been with Robinson Morton 18 years, and I'm sure there's plenty of path prior to those 18 years. You've had some autonomy along the way.
Mhm.
So with that autonomy, what were the bumpers or the guardrails that you used to stay within the path? I know that you kind of defined the path. So there may not have been bumpers there. What was that like? How'd you do it? How did you do it, Jennifer?
I'm not even sure that I could define that specifically, because it's one of those that when you're in the front and you're trying to lead that way and you're trying to navigate what that looks like, you're so focused on what that next step is, you haven't really thought about what those steps were behind you. And so it for me, I have to kind of stop and reflect on that. But again, for me and in the company that I work for, I have been blessed with, leaders that I work with and that have seen something in me and have trusted that I'm going to represent our company right, that I'm going to support our people, and I'm going to help us and what that looks like for our next generation, and giving us validity and making sure that we are staying viable, within the industry. And I think we recognized as a company 6-7 years ago the value of lean. Again, we weren't doing IPD across the company. We were having a couple of very highlighted projects. And we had some leaders that recognized their success to that. And I think they allowed themselves to look and finding, okay, what made this project different than this project? Now, again, success is defined differently for a lot of people. And at no point do we want to say those that have had success have done it wrong. We know that we've had a lot of success and we've had a lot of people that have done some amazing things. But again, based on future generations, based on people coming into the workforce, based on the lack of the workforce, we can't continue doing things the same way and expect that we're going to get the same results. We've got to look at how are we approaching some of the people coming in that need that autonomy, that need some ownership, that need to feel like they're a leader, or that they, something that their voice matters. And maybe in traditional construction, sometimes there was one voice and that superintendent was able to be the voice and you just responded to the voice. And I think David Marquet has a leadership video out there. It's like a submarine video, and he talks through just the importance of not just being that voice and creating that intent and letting people kind of have a little bit of, like you said, guardrails to be able to go and be able to own a little bit of it, but also a little bit of room for maybe some roadblocks or some things that, okay, let's try this. Okay, that didn't work. How can we now keep going forward, and realizing that we've got to be able to do better? And I think for me, that's what I was given. Some people were given that and they're like, okay, what do I do with this? I was given it and going, okay, you gave it to me, so let's go. I was able to take that and push forward. Sometimes, again, some of those were a little rocky, and some we definitely made some mistakes and didn't quite approach it the right way. But I think we learned from those, and I think that's making us better, and also giving me a really good, I guess, roadmap going forward on some things we want to make sure that we address.
You entered the construction industry 18 years ago. So you've been in different places, very different places.
Yes.
So I'm interested to know the people. What similarities and differences really stand out to you between the folks that work in our industry and in the spaces you were at before?
Okay, so coming in prior to construction, I was a teacher and a coach.
Yes.
So let's go there. I mean, so you think you think it's just this other end of the spectrum. And I think what I realized there, I got into teaching and coaching, and let's go back a little bit more. So one of your questions, I think, to me at some point to prepare for this was what were those early aspirations? What were those things that when you were younger and you're getting your college degree and you're figuring it out. So I went into college with an absolute anything the farthest from teaching that I could do. And that for me was, a degree in operations management, looking at manufacturing. I have no idea why I wanted that, what I thought about it, and it's full circle now. So it's kind of
Right.
comical. But my dad was a teacher, and my dad was a single father, and he was, raising 4 kids and, taught for 29 years. So when you grow up and that's kind of the environment and that's what's navigating your life, I was just like, I will never be a teacher. Because like I got to listen to I got to sit at home and grade papers. He was a
Oh,
science teacher. We're also talking about 30, 40 years ago, but still growing up in that, I was like, I will not go into that industry. I will not. So I go and get a degree in operations management. So, completely outside of that. And then through the course of the universe, I got reached out to and asked, hey, we have an opportunity here for you to come and teach and coach. And I went back to school for 3 years to get my dang teaching certification because for whatever reason at that time, that's what, made sense. And that's where my passion was pulled. And so it opened up a lot of things. But I think what it did do, and I think it was needed, was it gave me a platform to be able to get comfortable talking, to be able to get comfortable being in front of people that will question everything you do. When you are teaching 6th, 7th, 8th graders, high school kids, it doesn't matter what you're teaching them. It doesn't matter what you are communicating to them. They will question it. They will attack it. They will resist it. And I think it's now looking back, thinking about that. And then the coaching aspect, I played college and I played basketball in college. And so again, the teaching and the coaching piece, that's part of what's inside of me anyway, and being able to help with how the leadership and the team and the behaviors and the environment when you're looking at sports teams and you're looking at how it's very equivalent to our project teams. I've heard this and it was a conversation I was a part of that got a little bit tense, but it was, hey, when you think about your team, is it your project, is it a team or a family?
yeah.
And it was a very kind of people were taking very extreme, it's this or it's this, and it's not both. And I think as I was watching it and kind of giving my feedback, it brought me back to that coaching and that teaching, but also being a part of a team in college and things like that. And how much, for me, again, it goes down to the people and it goes down to that basic, when you're respecting people and you trust the people that you're with, where does that go? For me, there's not a big line between family and team when you're talking about your work and you're talking about the people that you surround yourself with. But I think I saw in that and looking back, obviously retrospectively, because when you're in it, you're just like, I got to get out of this. So I taught for almost 5 years. And I think I went into it going, this is new, this is great, let me figure this out. But I was going to school for 3 of those years. Yep. And I think I was learning and I was taking it in and it's like, okay, I'm growing. And I think once I got that and I was in a place for teaching, again, much respect for teaching and coaching. My dad did it for his entire career, but it was one of those that I felt like very contained. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, you know me a little bit, right. But I don't contain well. Yeah. And so there wasn't a lot of opportunity for me to grow and to learn and just what does that career path look like? And so for me, I felt like very just, again, contained, and I needed something different. I had no idea what that was because obviously my background was a little bit colored. And so I just, again, went out and started kind of doing some temp stuff. And then the opportunity, the Robbins Morton opened a Dallas office and they were looking for someone to help open it. And that's kind of how I got my start.
So can't contain Jennifer Lacy.
I'm not saying people haven't tried. It just doesn't end well.
That's fair. You talked a little while earlier about the learning, like you learn more when you talk less. And you talked about university, being an educator while also learning, like as you're going to school. You came to the construction industry, and you didn't come straight into the lean culture changing magician that you are now. You started in a very different role, and what I'm picking up on is the space to learn.
Yes, the evolution, I think. What you see today is definitely not what came into this industry 18 years ago, but it not that the potential wasn't there, but I think the evolution of what happened and what I've been able to do and grow and who I am today is definitely something that was fostered. throughout that 18 years. I think I came in and, in the role I had a lot of hats. I was supporting operations and pre-con and the office and BD and marketing. There were just a lot of hats that I came in, which was great because I was learning something new in a new industry. So it was almost, that foundation needed to be laid so I could understand everything that I was going to be able to support. And I think because of that, took a little bit more of a strategic BD marketing track, because when you're marketing, you're elevating and you're sharing and you're lifting a lot of things up and you're promoting and things like that. When I'm doing that, that's my happy place. When I can elevate others and I can inspire and I can encourage, and that goes back to teaching and coaching. And I think that's where, how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we elevate the people that are out there? And I think that track is what that I kind of took for the, I guess, prior to coming in to being exposed to lean. And so it was good because when you're out there communicating, and you probably know this, anytime you have to teach a class or you have to have a conversation, whether it's sales, whatever it is, to be able to go in there, you have to prepare.
Oh yeah.
And if you're preparing to promote a company, to be able to sell a company, you've got to do a lot of learning because you want to make sure you're communicating the right things. What are those differentiators, things like that. And so I was able to grow and learn just in who we are and what we do, and be able to be a huge advocate for our company and for our industry internally to help our company, but also externally on who the people that, I surround myself with.
You mentioned the word evolution, and I agree with it 100%. It is an evolution. It's an evolution of self-discovery and identifying what it is within oneself to best serve the people we care about or the community. And the older I get, and maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but the older I get, the clearer that becomes. So I'm thinking about the middle school Jennifer Lacy that was balling on everybody on the court and just killing it in the classroom. There's some traits that you have that you've had all the time since you were a little one, but you maybe not back then didn't understand what they were, and maybe caused some confusion in your mind as you were developing and figuring out your uniqueness. What are some of those things?
Okay, well, I'm going to think a little bit. You know me a little bit, just a tiny bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, from your perspective, what's something that comes through that, knowing my background and knowing my history, maybe the seed was planted?
Beautiful question. So what comes through first is a ferocious appetite to learn. That comes through clearly. The second thing that really comes through, that rather, it's in what you share. It's in your story. You don't say it explicitly, but there's this fierce level of competition, of competing, and not just competing, but winning. How far off base am I?
I mean, again, competition. I'm the oldest sister. I have 3 younger brothers, and we're within 5 years of each other. So,
okay.
I mean, so when you think growing up, single father, I mean, we were talking about it. We took vacation, all of us together, a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, we remember growing up, and it's funny you asked that question, because we were talking about it specifically, that he would sit us all, if something happened and he wanted to know who did it, so he could know who was going to get punished or who was going to get,
right.
Spanking or whatever. So it's like he'd sit us all four, and this is, I mean, from early memories, he'd sit us all four on the couch, and he's like, "You four are going to figure it out. You're going to tell me who did it, so that then we can move forward." I've got one brother that we know was most of the time the one that did it, and he's like, "I'm good. I'm not admitting to anything." Like he's like, "I'll sit here all day. I don't care. Like, but I'm not owning this." I got another brother that was like a little bit of the peacemaker, but almost like, "Oh my gosh, I got stuff I want to go do. Fine, I'll own it, so I can get the spanking, so we can all go." Like, it was just the dynamic of what happened on that couch numerous times. What he was doing, again, part of it was to benefit him because he wanted to know who needed to learn the lesson. But the other one was what he created in that collaboration, in that us talking, and that building of relationships, and the behaviors and the things that we were able to figure out ourselves. Now looking back into like you said, the competition piece, but just the things that were built, and then going forward when you're also dealing with who's winning and who's not. I mean, it's just those type of things. It was laid so early, and it was fostered, and it was, I mean, it was without a doubt, like he was building something, and he had a plan. We weren't sure what the plan was, but I mean, but even now we're all in our 40s, and we get together on Sunday and we play cards, and we get together and we take vacations together. And I mean, again, in a family of 4 kids, that doesn't happen very much. So it was really cool looking back. But I think that feeling and that environment and what those behaviors and those relationships, that's easily carried over into my work and into the people that I interact with. There's not one that I don't try to make feel just as important as if I'm sitting with my brothers. I don't know if that even answered your question.
It does. It does. I mean, the reason I asked the question is, I imagine there's a bunch of youngsters out there that are confused. You talked a little bit about construction, right? There's a particular definition of success that can lead people astray. So we get focused on outcomes. And so however we get there is okay, which is not entirely appropriate. Now, when we're younger, there's things that we notice about ourselves, but it's different than everybody else around us. I think it's easy to get confused in thinking I need to conform, but reality is no, you don't. Absolutely not. Like the greatest thing you're going to be is you, and lean into that. And the reason I asked is to confirm, like, how far off base is my thinking around that? In that when you're a youngster, those things that you feel like you need to change about yourself, you don't have to. You actually need to nurture them and develop them. And so your response absolutely highlighted that, because it's what you're doing now.
I was reading your mind. I just didn't know that.
Can you remember at what point you were able just to embrace that uniqueness about you?
I think I'm still trying to figure it out.
Ooh, okay.
I know that I'm a leader, not just because it's in my title, but because of the impact and the people that are around me and the people that are influenced by what I'm doing. But I also know it just as much. I'm a follower because I want to know more about Jesse, and I want to know more about Adam and Felipe and Keon and Joe, and just, I mean, all the people that are around me. I want to get everything from them so that I can be better. And so for me, I know that, and I know people look to me, and I want to make sure I'm representing right. I want to make sure that in everything I do, and I hope the people that know me know this, but everything is, genuine and transparent. And what my dad taught me a long time ago is, Jennifer, if you tell the truth and you are genuine and you do the things that you know are right, you don't have to remember.
Oh yeah.
And it was it's such a minor, it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, again, but if you're trying to create something that's fake, you're trying to make somebody see something that maybe isn't real, or you're trying to fabricate something here or there, at some point, how people interact and the integration of different things and how you cross paths. At some point, if it's not real and it's not genuine and it's not what you really represent, it will come out.
Yes.
And I think and I mean, you see it, we watch it in our interactions with other people. I've worked very hard to surround myself with people that are genuine and are transparent, but I learned that early on. And again, it was something he taught me is, Jennifer, you just tell the truth and you're just genuine and you're real. Sometimes people aren't going to like it. They're not going to like what you say. They're maybe not even agree with you a lot of times. And that's okay. And I think that's the part I've kind of had to embrace. But if I say it to you, and I say it in a room with executives, and I say it on a project team, and then 2 years down the road, I'm saying the same things because that's who I am. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. They know that what I'm saying to them is real. And for me, for someone that's still learning and growing, if I can just be honest and genuine and transparent, and every time I talk, then I don't have to remember what I said. And it's such a minor thing, but it's a real thing, because there's so many people that try to navigate and cater what they're saying to the rooms they're in and to the conversations they're having. And I think that's part of, I'm going to say, my evolution. That, and you ask, what was that point? I think what seeing the importance of that and the value of that, I've seen it in different arenas. To replace my position, to be able to move into the position I'm in now with Robbins and Morton, we had to replace me in Dallas for the position that I'd been in for 16 years. And there was a person that I had kind of reached out to, and she was not in a place where she was ready to move. She was ready to change companies. But she was the person I'm like, I think this is the person. And so, 6 months later, as we're still trying to fill a position, and we've gone around and we've done interviews and we've done a lot of different things to be able to fill a position that wore a couple of hats, but it was one that had kind of been established. And so it's like, what does that look like? So I called again, I reached out to that, and I ran across her at an event, and I was like, hey, I don't know where she actually said, hey, who did you hire? I'm like, we're still looking. And she said it was something in her that day when she asked, and I said, we're still looking. She's like, why don't we have lunch? We had lunch, and she had like 20 questions. And she was asking about, and I'm like, this is a good sign. So, again, it was, 6 months after I had reached out, and she just wasn't in a place to move. And we had our conversation was real. It was genuine. I put it all out there. Here's what it is. Here's what it's not. Here's what you're going to, everything. And then she's like, okay, well, can we follow up with the vice president who she would be reporting to? And so I set a meeting up, and she sat in and had a great conversation with him. And then she came out and we talked, and she's like, Jennifer, everything you said was 100% accurate. I'm like, well, how does that benefit me if I'm not giving her everything? Right. And so she was able to, coming in, knowing what I said. It's one thing to get somebody in and just tell them what they want to hear, because you want to get what you want, but to get her in. And then again, within, a couple of months, she was in the position. She's been there almost 2 years, and she's amazing. And there's not another person that was the right person for that position. And it just goes back to that example of when you're genuine and you're transparent, good things can happen.
Oh, mic drop.
And so I'm going to give a shout out to Laura Hernandez, because she's amazing, and she has done some amazing things, and she's elevated that position. As much as I was doing 1,000 other things and lean and marketing, she has come in and she's even elevated the position more than what I could have even done. So she's amazing.
Nice. Laura, we love you. Good job. Keep killing it. So the 2-year mark, it was 2 years ago when Laura took it and you started doing your magic.
So 2.5 years is when there was like a 6 month of nobody in the position, because we wanted to get the right person. And so a little over 2.5 years ago, I got put in the full-time position of supporting our Building Forward approach. And my title right now is Lean Practice Leader.
Lean Practice Leader.
Yes.
I think the word practice is probably the most important word in there.
I agree. And that was added from Robert Gambrell, who I report to, when we were talking through titles and what that looks like. And I wanted leader in it because I felt like, leaders is a huge piece of our industry and what that represents. And he's like, Jennifer, we want practice in there, because you're not just supporting, people, you're supporting our jobs, you're supporting a lot of the things that we're doing. And so practice was a huge add to that. So I agree that it definitely kind of sets a tone.
Yeah, it does. It is a practice, it's progress, not perfection. Yes. You get closer to excellence when you practice.
Yes.
Oh man, genius.
Like basketball, right? Like practice. Like I have a 10-year-old that's playing basketball, and we go out and we're shooting, and she's just like, I'm missing. I'm like, that's why we're practicing. That's why we do this. And okay, you're making it. That's why we're still practicing, is because fundamentals and the foundation of anything we're doing, you've never at a point where you're the absolute best and that you need to stop.
Oh man. So 2.5 years ago, you started.
So 2.5 years ago, I took a full-time position to support it within Robbins and Morton. Now we're going on almost 6 years of full-fledged Building Forward within the company. There was just not, we have a core team that was kind of leading it. So strategically, what does that look like? What is the direction, things like that. So we had a core team of people, and I was part of that core team. And so 2.5 years ago, now there's a person that's kind of leading it.
I see. So 6 years Building Forward was rolled out or launched. Mm-hmm. And 2.5 years ago, you were the tip of the spear for Building Forward. Mm-hmm. Looking back, because I know that you've had tremendous, like remarkable impact. Could you have predicted where you're at now back then?
No.
No?
Well, definitely not 6 years ago, just because I was, okay, this is cool. What is this? What is this?
Mm-hmm.
Again, 2.5 years ago, well, really three, when in my mind, I really think this is something I could do. I really think this is something I can help with and I can elevate. And so just going in and having that conversation with our leaders and, hey, have we thought about this and what does that look like and stuff like that. So I think even at that point, when we were talking through what the role could be and what it is, even I think they would all say, even now, it's what we thought it was going to be then, and what it is now is just it's evolved.
Okay. So based on what y'all were predicting or maybe even expecting, how far have y'all exceeded those predictions or expectations?
Oh well, that means I have to talk about me a little bit, right? So I think the expectation, again, we created it. It's very, very intentional that it was organic. So absolutely, it was like top down support, bottom up participation. It was very intentional from the beginning. And I think that because it was that way, you're kind of allowing, I guess the way we said it is you have to want it. So I'm going to go out and say, policies here you're going to do. You have to do this tool. You have to do this. You have to do this. So we started it very organic with, hey, you have to want to do it. And so I think through that we saw successes and we saw, but we also, I think for me, it was also those missteps and some learnings that we learned along the way, which everyone does when you're trying to implement something different and change something that a very, I'm going to say, archaic industry. But I think where we are now with metrics and what we're measuring when it comes to, I used to say quality of implementation. Adam Hoots helped me change my mindset to the maturity of what you're trying to do instead of the quality, because I think the maturity of what you're trying to create. And so I think I like that. I like that shift because you're looking at something over time. And so quality is you're doing it or you're not. And I think we're shifting that from what is that maturity level. And so being able to look at the depth of it and not just, are we doing it or are we not? Because I think for me, we didn't have a baseline because we weren't really measuring and creating that baseline and just going, hey, here's where we are. Very basic yeses and nos. Yeses and nos. And across the company in the last year or so, we now have, I'm going to say, let me get the metrics right here, about 125 projects across the company, about 54 project teams. So we measure it by teams and not projects. And across the company now we can be very absolute that every one of them are measuring. Now, again, we're going to be very clear. We're measuring activity. Activity is a little bit different, but you have to start somewhere. You have to have that baseline. And so being able to measure the activity of what's going on. And then now looking at what that next step is when it comes to maturity of, how those tools are evolving. What is the level of maturity? We have some that are just killing it out of the park. And some that have been doing it for a while and they just keep making it better. And we have a couple of superintendents that have been on this journey and they just continue to push that bar higher and higher. We have some that, have found success in other things, and they're slowly starting to see the things that they can impact or the things that they can add value to. And so I think what I've seen is one of the, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this now yet, but one of the missteps or one of the things that in my mind happened early on that I think now we're starting to see how it was a misstep, but how we can fix it is when we rolled it out 6 years ago and we started looking at the wins and the things that we're going to fight, that were going to help us. I think it was a huge miss to not intentionally reach out to those very experienced, successful superintendents. And I think we may have saw it a little bit, but what that did, because we didn't, we weren't intentional. I think we weren't doing it unintentionally. I think we weren't intentional. And when you can elevate certain people and then other people that know that they're doing good things are not, you're creating a divide. And when you create that gap and that divide, I think what over the last 6 years we've had to do is try to bridge that.
That beautiful background. So back to the question, you had a baseline because that's how you roll.
Yes.
And here we are 2.5 years later. How amazing is it You've
I
got
think
to
we're blowing
go.
it out of the park. I think we're
Okay.
blowing it out of the park. I think we're leading the industry. And I don't think that because of me as the leader. I think that because my tribe and the people that I surround myself with are people like you that
Yeah.
are out there in the industry. And really some of them are our competitors. Some
Yep.
of them are people that we go up against. And, my mentors, people that I talk to a lot. And, here's what's working, here's what's not. And there's not one conversation, and this is so hard for me. It's so hard for me to talk about me, but there's not one conversation that I have that someone just goes, Jennifer, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't even know how to help you because of what y'all have been able to put in place.
Uh-huh.
And it makes you feel good for a second, but you're like, yeah, but tell me what I need to do. Like, I still need the feedback. I still need to go, yeah, but like, there's no way we're there. And we're just this very, the baseline of what we could do. And I think what we've been able, the structure. And again, there's a lot of companies. I mean, you've worked for one, a lot of companies that have a lot of things going on, a lot of amazing things.
Yes.
And I think for me, the focus and one of the things, another one that I felt was maybe something that didn't happen at the beginning, that another learning, maybe I missed up, but it was one of those that we love. We had a lot of tools. We had list of tools, a list of all the things that you could do, lean, all the things you could do on your projects. And here's all the cool things that are going to make you work better, work smarter, be more efficient, add value, eliminate waste. Here's all the tools. We had no support structure to help that, to support. And so you throw tools out there and you got a couple of champions that can reach out, but you got a handful of champions that have done it and they figured it out themselves. And that's great. That's wonderful. You have other people that are just like, okay, how do we do? What do we do? And when you don't have a support structure in place, I think that it was one of those we realized, and then we had to figure out what did that look like. And so we started out with, hey, we'll identify champions. We'll identify the champions that could help. And again, we had a group of, I think we started with 15 and ended up being like 45, but we had some champions that you go, hey, these are people that can help. And what we found was that when someone needed help with last planner, we got a group of champions. So reach out to the champions and they call one of the champions. And he's like, well, what I'm really good at is condition of satisfaction. I'm really good at that, or doing A3s. I'm not really great at last planner, but hey, go ahead and call Josh or Bill, or those are better people. And what we realized is we were getting a lot of people that were getting frustrated because they didn't know where to go to get help.
Yep.
And I think that came up and it got surfaced and we talked about it and okay, how do we improve this? How do we make it better? Because at that point, we're looking at scaling this company wide, and we need to be able to put that support in. And so what I've put in place with a lot of help from a lot of amazing people within our company is we've focused on resource teams that support tools and processes.
Yeah.
And culture. And so we have groups of people that are very specific to, hey, if I want to know more about Gimbal Walks, I'll call the Gimbal Walks resource group. We have a leader. We have a core team person that's a part of that. They have people that have volunteered to be a part of that group because they support it and they believe in it and they can help people, coach people on it.
Yep.
And so being able to be very tool specific goes back to your question. I know you keep going. That to me, that's part of the things that have been successful and things we've been able to put in place. That structure piece has completely, I think, elevated our implementation, but also our kind of what we're doing across the company. And I say that because every project makes commitments and every project reports on what they're doing. And I say every project.
Well, the one thing that you touched on it, and when you're seeking feedback and everybody's like, girl, I can't give you any because you're smoking our ass. It's the culture thing. For me, what just baffles me, and I'm gonna dig into your mind, not on this call, but in the future.
Yes.
Is the structure that you've discovered or defined for establishing that culture. I mean, putting resource groups together based on specific expertise and volunteering and would you say top down?
Bottom up participation, top down support.
Yeah, like when you said that, like, I know, I feel that. I don't know what the hell it looks like or how to do it, but yes, that's exactly what I've been trying to say. you've established that culture, and in the spaces that I've been in, the organizations that I worked with, and the project teams that I've worked to support, the biggest challenge is the culture. Tools almost degrade the culture.
Tools, so, but what's below here, the environment and the behaviors are absolutely are what, if that's not in place, and we've talked about this, the tools that you can have short-term success with tools.
Yep.
You can have short-term success with strategy. Hey, this project, this specific team, you can have short-term successes and be like, here's what drove that success. It will not be sustained. It will not go beyond that. And
Yep.
once that person that has dictated that is gone, it will fall apart. I mean, and there's nothing else you can say, but if you take the leader out of it and you take the person in charge out of it, and it changes, whether it changes for the good or it changes something going back to revert to traditional, implementation. If you take that leader out, then you did not establish that environment or behavior that can be sustained.
And you saw that. You tested it, you put your finger on it, and you developed a recipe to produce that. And that's the thing, girl. Like, that's the thing that everybody's scratching and clawing at because of the damn tools. We all like the tools, and we never really want to talk. Here's a good analogy. In our industry, we don't want to talk about culture, commitment, and trust, or even psychological safety. Oh my God, we're going to piss some people off when we bring that one up. Well, man, you want to talk about tools? Yeah, we're going to talk about tools all day long. Right.
Give me the checklist. Tell me what you do. I'll check the boxes.
Yeah. And it's analogous to Jennifer talking about all the amazing things and the teams and the people. She's down for that, like tools. But when we want to talk about Jennifer, she's not very comfortable.
No.
What do you think?
No, you're absolutely right. And again, it's because everything is my goals, my mission, my purpose, my why is about how am I elevating others? How am I encouraging others? How am I inspiring others? And again, it's the question, but those are the questions I ask myself. So make sure those outward actions are happening. But it doesn't reflect on it. At no point is it a self-reflection. It's what are the actions? What needs to happen so that I'm doing these things? Because to me, that is where I bring value. That is, that's, I say it's my happy place, but it's when I'm encouraged and I'm full of energy and I'm, out there being a positive force, it can integrate and be and really transfer to other people.
Yes. And it's important. So you're killing it. When the people say, I don't know what to help you, what they mean is, well, you're kicking ass. And I want to be able to kick ass like you're kicking ass. So give me feedback. Tell me what I need. Well, anyways, that's what it is for me. I can't speak for everybody. Now, you mentioned earlier that you can't be contained. And that's a good thing. I get it. And you shared it through the conversation. If the listener hasn't picked up on it, you need to know Jennifer loves to learn. Now, so that brings me to this weird question. I'm going to fumble through it. Do you feel a sense of containment growing as the space to learn decreases?
Okay, so explain a little bit.
Yep. So you've been on this journey of establishing, and maybe not even establishing, creating culture, and you've got a lot of reps, and it's working. You have an outline, you have a plan, follow the plan, and boom, it works. So there was a lot of learning that you had to have, experiments and failures and all that good stuff to get to this recipe that works consistently. So now the learning has gotten small, the opportunity to learn has gotten smaller.
Okay.
And as that opportunity to learn and discover gets smaller, does your feel around being contained, does that increase proportionately?
I think so. I don't know if contained at that point, it's the limitations. I think for me, a little bit different than contained, because contained is like there's no, you can't get out.
Okay.
Where I think for me, the limitations of as I go and I reach those goals and I accomplish the things, or I get that information, I think then it's like okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And I think for me, the what's next and what does that look like? Again, I don't know, but I don't think I knew, 5 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever, what that was either. So
Yes.
it doesn't, it's scary only because, it's always been scary. And that doesn't stop me, but it also, gets you thinking, okay, I'm doing this, but then how does that then impact this? And how does that, what's next to be able to continue to elevate? We know you never reach a mastery. You're never going to get to that point where it's perfection. And we know we're just getting started. For us, some of the people in the company have been on this journey for 10 years and they've been doing stuff. There's some that are still coming into it for the first time. So, we know that first 5 or 10 years, you're still figuring things out anyway. And then as things evolve and as things grow, I guess that's the greatest thing for me about lean and what we're doing and building forward is it's continual. Like
Yes.
even for me that, okay, I've got those, got certified, got this, I'm able to do these things, but it's always, there's something else. There's something else to be able to figure out. I've got a group of people now that got me onto Clubhouse, which,
Yes.
which is new for me. For me, it's new. It's like a week and a half in, and I've gone in and I'm starting to watch and I'm just like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's to me, like that was something that I didn't even know existed. And then it's there. And now the learning that's been able to be there for me, that was huge because of the need for that, for the learning and listening to other people. Because for me, I'm doing way more listening than I am talking. And when I'm listening, I'm learning.
Yes. Yes.
And so for me, I think that was a huge one.
So I'm going to plant this seed to challenge you. You love to learn via listening. And that's part of the reason why you try to minimize your talking. And I love that. Like, that's a very simple, but super damn difficult thing to do. But you have tremendous amount of goodness that people need to learn, are dying to learn. And the only way they're going to learn it, sister, is by you talking more. And I understand that's a challenge, but just want to put that out there. And we're talking, learning keeps coming up. And so here comes the fans only question. What learning have you had? And I'm sure there's a bunch of them, but what learning have you had as a result of a tremendous or painful mistake?
There's a big one, and I think I'm still figuring it out.
Okay.
And I think at least I've acknowledged it, and I can at least go into the conversations with it.
Oh yeah, here I am again, ruining the surprise. It's so good. You gotta hit us up on the patreon.com/learnings and missteps. We appreciate your support, and back to the show. Vetting it through different eyes.
Yes.
That is a powerful idea. I'm gonna get a tattoo of that right here on a neck tattoo. It says vet it through different eyes.
Maybe not we're on your neck.
So you talked about the next generation, which will bring us to maybe the final question. How do you intend to transform the world going forward?
I thought about this because you gave me a little bit of heads up. And so for me, the more that I'm learning, the more that I'm trying to lead, sometimes I'm doing a good job of it, sometimes not so good. I feel like what kept coming through is, and this is going to be a hashtag, I'm sure. It's going to be, what are the ripples of impact that I'm leaving? And so for me, it's so easy to get caught up in that immediate response, or that immediate, you leave a room and you are on fire, you're floating because of what's happened right there in that room, and it's feeding you and it's exciting you. And then I'm part of conversations that's like, yeah, I posted this, or I had this conversation, and nobody said anything. Nobody responded. I have an open-ended question in a room, and they're just staring at me. And it's so easy to get caught up in those moments where it's like, I didn't make the point I was supposed to. I didn't reach what I was supposed to do. It must not have been impactful because nobody said anything. And what I've realized after the fact, even through this journey of 6 years or 2.5 years after the fact, is those little seeds are happening. Those rocks that are, going across the water, and those ripples are going and going and going. It's like the ripples of impact that are happening. We have to believe, and if not, that we don't even need to be doing what we're doing. We have to believe that when we're saying things and when we're doing things and when someone's watching what we're doing and having the engagement and being able to see and observe, even from the background, they don't want to jump in, they don't want to whatever, that those ripples of impact are happening. And I think for me, elevating people, that's my goal, and elevating, inspiring, encouraging people to keep doing what they're doing, finding those little silent heroes out there and being able to elevate them. But really, what are we doing that are leaving those ripples of impact? That we leave the project site, we have a conversation, and we're touching people on social media, whatever those things are, and then it's over. And we're going back to our day jobs, and we're going back to our families. And then what's happening outside of that? And I'm just seeing more conversations or comments, or I show up somewhere. I was down in Florida a couple of months ago, and one of our leaders, our vice presidents, and his wife were there, and we were talking, and they have two sons in our company. And I've interacted with him at different times. And I was talking to his wife, in Florida, and she was just like, Jennifer, my boys love you. And I'm like, I mean, they do. And I think the moment, because again, I only interacted with one of them a little, the other one a little bit more, but they're still very young, project engineer, field engineers in our company. And, for a mother so obviously they go home and they have a comment or they talk about something. And for her to say that to me, in my mind, it's like, you have no idea the ripples of impact you're having.
Yeah.
And how that's going to influence what they're saying and what they're doing, and even the conversations they're having. And so for me, that's, it's not, I'm not saying it's a mic drop, but that's, to me, that's what it comes down to.
And for the listeners out there that may be missing it, there is a responsibility we have, because everybody we touch, we will impact them. You may not see it right now and in the moment. Get over yourself, right? Let go of that need or want to have people say, oh my God, you changed my world with what you just said. Because it's coming. It's coming. The hashtag ripples of impact.
But I want to make sure we add too that even the ones that are coming at you with either but or an attack or that'll never happen, you've stirred something in them for them to have to say something.
Yes.
And don't take, again, that's how I look at it. So even if it's like I poke the bear, and sometimes they're just like, whatever, they just don't have time to be bothered. But if I poke them and they come back and they respond, something in them made them feel like they needed to get engaged. And in my mind, that's the first thing that has to happen, because if you don't have the engagement, then it doesn't matter what the conversation is.
And they're telling you by default, they're telling you what they need to get there.
Yes.
They're giving us the recipe of how to get there. Reconciling, wait a minute, what? No, yeah, but it'll never work because X. Really, they're saying, how could I make that work? Because I've always had this problem. They're telling you the problem. Help them with the problem.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Or they'll give you their solution. And again, it may not be your solution, and it may not even be in your mind the best solution. But if they're coming at you with, well, here's a better way, or here's what even though in your mind it doesn't conform to what you're trying to do, it does.
Yes.
Because if they're engaging and they're sharing something that, even if it kind of takes it off this direction, it again, you said something earlier on changing the culture. I feel that it's not changing the culture. I feel like my role is fostering the cultures, because there have been there's some good cultures. There's some good things that have been put in place that were there before I came to be. And there were successes that happened because of some great, amazing leaders. And so my job is not to go in and go, oh, this isn't working, let me change it. It's okay, what are the nuggets here and the things that we want to foster, and we want to feed, and we want to elevate to make it better.
Love it, because it is a partnership. It's not you coming in and doing it. It's how do we all contribute to making that thing happen?
Yes, because the goal is, when I'm not the answer.
Mm.
I can fuel the fire. I can ask questions. I can help kind of get some stuff started. But I won't be on all 125 of our projects. I won't be a part of all 54 or 55 of our project teams. I won't.
Mm.
And so when I leave, something still has to be going on and happening. So I can be a spark, but I cannot be the fuel that's continually feeding it to make it be what it should be.
Well, Miss Jennifer, did you have fun?
I did, and I survived, and I
survived.
I feel, yes, I did, and I feel good, and I feel like we talked about some really, really cool things, and I think that, again, every time I talk to you, that happens, but my anxiety's way lower than it was when we started. I appreciate that.
Good. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we missed?
I don't think so, because I think everything we talked about was way more than I anticipated anyway. I feel like you tapped into a couple of things. Again, I mean, I love what we do. I love our industry, and I know that, I mean, our goal is to better the industry. And I think the biggest piece that I've learned working in an industry that traditionally what we've held high is hold the things that are amazing and that we're doing so different than the rest of the world so close so that we can be the best at what we're trying to do, and trying to make sure that we hold it, because it's a secret and we don't want anybody else to grab it and take it. And then the other is, if we screw up and we make a mistake, put it under the rug. You don't want to talk about those things, because then somebody can hold it against you. And I think what we've done is we've completely flipped that upside down. Is I'm getting the best advice and the best ideas, and even how to help with some of my issues or some of my problems or some of the roadblocks that I come across from the people outside of my company that work for my competitors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing, because I say competitors because that's what people understand. But some of my best friends, are people that their firms are going after projects that we're going after, and that's okay, because we are not going to improve the entire industry by people and by companies. If I just focus on one person, our industry is not going to get better. If I even focus on my company, if Robinson Morton can be the best we can be, it will not better the entire industry.
Right.
But if we can do it all together, all of us together, all of our companies together, trying to change a mindset and trying to change the way we approach people, then it will make a change.
Well, I want to join you on that adventure.
Yes.
You got to share. We got to share it, and we'll get there. What did I tell you? Now, what you didn't get, if you're only listening to the podcast, is you didn't get to take her beaming smile in. So hit us up on YouTube, because that's growing. We got some subscribers coming in. We're even starting to get some likes. Thank you all for helping us grow far beyond what we ever expected to. And because of y'all's support, things are starting to build up out in that podcast world. Keep an eye out on July 30th and 31st. Hit up shareyourpod.com. I'm going to be speaking for a little bit, sharing, our story, our journey with this podcast. And it is y'all that are giving me the confidence to just put myself out there, and we'll see what happens. Now, time for some recognition. This dude, I'm going to meet him in person by the time this episode airs. He's straight up gangsta, man. He's out there making it happen. His name is Steve Turner. He's the founder of Bring Back the Trades. Steve Turner says, I've actually been listening to them and I love them. He's talking about us. Rather, he's talking about the episodes, but I like to think just us. I love that it's real tradespeople you're interviewing. I'm working really hard to get the younger individuals energized about the trades and letting them know that college isn't their only choice. Straight up, Steve, like, I got your back, man. Anything we can do. I know that we're going to be connecting deeply through the Skilled Trades Alliance. So heads up, L&M family, keep an eye out for that Skilled Trades Alliance, because we're about to make something happen. We're about to begin celebrating, elevating, and recognizing all the amazing CTE programs, employers, employees, journeymen, educators, like the whole thing, man. It's going to take all of us to connect and make this thing really happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Peace. Man, you are one dedicated listener, sticking with us all the way through to the very, very end. Please know that this podcast dies without you, and we invite you to share how the episode's impacting you, along with your thoughts, questions, and suggestions. You've been gracious with your time, so we added social media links in the show notes to make it super easy for you to connect with us. Be kind to yourself, stay cool, and we'll talk at you next time.